The 7 Secrets of Somewhere Lake, Chapter 11, Crayons and Chipmunks. Ye crags and peaks, I am with you once again. O sacred forms, how proud you look, how high you lift your heads to the sky, how huge you are, how mighty and how free. Jenny softly whispered these words of James Sheridan Knowles as we looked upon the awesome spectacle of the Grand Canyon. It was early evening, and we had just arrived at the North Rim. A sunset of surpassing splendor reigned in the western sky. Ponderous cumulus clouds looking like gigantic sea lions resting quietly at the horizon, while the sun rays played a color symphony on their wrinkled, woolly sides. Far, far below us lay the immense silent canyon, the hues of the sunset reflected by its mystic mountain peaks and somber cliffs. Our first evening at the Grand Canyon closed in glory that was well nigh too much for human thought to comprehend. The park ranger gave a long whistle that curved downwards at the end. "You certainly have ambitions," he commented on the request Jenny and I had just made. "You want animal pictures, and lots of them, and you want especially a white-tailed squirrel and a mountain lion and cub." He sat back and looked at me thoughtfully. "Haven't we met before?" he questioned. "It seems to me we have," I agreed. "That whistle of yours sounds pretty familiar. I have heard and seen you give it before, someplace." "It is a habit," he replied, "and now I am remembering. You heard that whistle at Yellowstone National Park for the same reason you heard it here. I was stationed there when you came and asked help in photographing grizzly bear and mountain sheep. You wouldn't ask for a black bear. I could have led you to plenty of those. No, you wanted a grizzly, and that is when I whistled." I laughed. "I recall it all now. You told me where the grizzlies were and then advised me not to go there. And you went anyways," he carried on. "Did you get your pictures?" "Yes, I did, and enjoyed the whole experience. And now you want a white-tailed squirrel and a mountain lion. Mind if I whistle again?" He did. "Well, you picked out a job," he commented. "About 2 months ago I found a white-tail and made this shot." Reaching in his desk drawer, he brought forth an enlargement and placed it before Jenny and me. It was an excellent picture of a white-tailed or kaibab squirrel, in size, making up, habit, and every appearance except color. He resembled the gray squirrel of the Middle West. When seen in the tree shadows, his tail looked pure white and his body jet black, but when examined closely, the tail is rather gray and the body a really dark brown. Nowhere else in the world is this strangely marked creature found. Just why he has evolved this color pattern we cannot know, but it has been suggested that it affords him winter protection. When the country is covered with snow and his predator enemies are active, his white tail curled over his back makes him blend with the white landscape. On the other hand, it may just be his effort to be original. At any rate, he seems quite proud of his plume-like tail and keeps waving it before the world. "It took me days to get that shot," the ranger explained, "and I haven't seen one of these squirrels since. I'll show you the area where I found him, and you can search it to your heart's content. I can't give you much hope, but now, about this mountain lion." He gave another whistle. "They are around here, all right. We see their tracks fairly often, but seldom one of them." "Afraid of a cougar?" he asked Jenny. "No, I'm not," she replied. "I like cats of any size." "There is no need to be afraid," he assured her. "I wouldn't want to get one cornered, for he can put up a terrific fight, but I have never known one to make a deliberate attack on a human being. They always run away. That is the trouble. As soon as you get in the same county with one, he is gone. So swiftly and silently you never would know he was around if you did not find his tracks. But to find one in position to make pictures, and especially one with a cub." I gave the whistle this time. "Thought I would save you the breath," I said. We spread before us maps of the region and discussed the areas in which cougars were still known to be. We talked with guides who were making frequent trips into the canyon, hunters, trappers, and wardens who had traveled far along the outer margins of the national park. From each came the same story. They had seen evidence of cougars, but not the animals themselves. I was pleased to note in all these men a more tolerant attitude towards the mountain lion than formerly prevailed. Until recent years, all through the West there was determination to exterminate the creature. He was listed as a wanton killer that must be destroyed. Now it was seen that this great cat is an important element in the balance of nature. Truly, he is entirely a predator. His major food is deer. However, if there are no factors to keep the numbers of deer down, overpopulation results with some sad consequences. There has been no sharper lesson in this than in the kebab. For years, efforts were made to exterminate the cougar and other predators. High bounties were paid on them. The deer herd reached such proportions that there was starvation, and some variations of trees were threatened with extinction by the frantic feeding of the animals. Now, the place of the big cat is in the wildlife scheme was better understood. By the time we had finished our talks with various advisors, our day was done. We had many plans, none of which offered much hope at finding mountain lions. There is a fire lane leading into those wilder areas northwest, our ranger said in summary. It is difficult driving, and I cannot promise that it would do to your car. That is your best country. Better camp there and just prowl about early mornings and evenings. You may not see any cats, but you will be seeing the wildest country left in these parts, and, he leaned back and looked at us earnestly, I think while you are here, you ought to go to the bottom of the canyon. You think we would find cougar there? I asked. No, at least it is unlikely, but I think you ought to go just for the experience. Our ranger friend did not know it, but he had touched on a sore spot. I did not want to go to the bottom of the Grand Canyon. Riding a mule over that long trail was the least of my desires, and I hoped no one would ask me to do it. We haven't all the time we need, I said to him, unconvinced of the truth of my own argument. The best photography is up here, and the most animals are here, so I guess we had better spend all of our days here. Then I added weakly, much as we would like to go. Well, he said, I think you should. I still think you should. I steered the conversation into other channels and hoped I would never hear another word on the subject. In the cool of the early evenings, with a brilliant sunset gracing the sky, we walked down the trail to Bright Angel Point. The great old canyon was weaving another masterpiece of silent beauty. Jenny and I went out on a high rock and sat spellbound by the display before us. In the muted distance, we could see the south rim of the canyon, seeming to be so close at hand, but really 10 miles away. We saw the sparkle of the lights of the canyon city and the dark outlines of San Francisco mountains far in the south. In the gathering gloom of the canyon depths, we could see the Zoroaster Temple, Brahma Temple, Diva Temple, Uncle Jimmy mountains that seemed fashioned of mystic substance at this hour. Presently I heard a sharp little voice. A chipmunk, I exclaimed. What is he doing out at this time of evening? We listened, and the sound came again. It is a chipmunk, Jenny agreed. One of the tiny tinies, she said, using our pet name for the least chipmunk, the smallest of them all. We started looking for the creature. The sound came from a few feet back of us where there were some huge boulders. Usually the least chipmunk is not difficult to see when he is calling, for with each note his tail flicks and this action catches the eye. He must be right here, said Jenny as we both rose looking for him. Is that he on the rock? No, that was a pine cone. Several other objects we accused of being chipmunks turned out otherwise. Still the call continued. and so did our search. Unnoticed at first, a man had approached and stood watching us. Seeing what we were about, he moved forward as if to join in our search. "Good evening," I said to him. "There is a chipmunk calling, and we are determined to find him." "Maybe I can help you," he said in a strong, deep voice. With a purposeful stride, he walked over to a large rock where he had been looking for our obscure visitor. "Come out of there, Bohunk," he said, jumping back of the rock. Now, in place of the little chirps, we heard a series of delighted giggles, and out came the man holding a 5 or 6-year-old boy high over his head. "Here is your chipmunk," he declared, pretending to handle the laughing child roughly. "He loves to fool people like that, and if he doesn't stop it, I'm going to pitch him head first right into the canyon." I could see them both clearly now, and realized that they were Indians. The man was tall, strong, with high cheekbones and dark skin. The youngster was small but wiry. His face beamed with a happiness that can only come from being loved a lot. He wore a headband with one feather in it. "Listen here, you fake chipmunk," said Jenny, stooping down to the youngster who was now showing some bashfulness. "Where did you learn to imitate a chipmunk so perfectly?" "I taught him," said the man, a bit of pride in his voice. He demonstrated his own ability by giving the call perfectly. "How does the chickadee go, Bohunk?" Like all children, Bohunk had to be coaxed to perform. Finally, he gave a right good imitation of a chickadee or a red squirrel. "And now, how does a marmot go?" the man asked. There was more coaxing, and finally a call given that sounded more like a squeaky gate than a marmot. "Ah, you can do better than that." The man picked him up and set him on his shoulders. "He's a little embarrassed at all this attention." "Your son?" I asked. "Yes, the Bohunk." "Anyone as cute as that is probably the center of attention everywhere," I commented. "Most of the time we do not see people," the father replied, tossing his son around like a ball while the little one giggled delightedly. "We live in the woods." "Navajo?" I asked. "Hopi," he replied proudly. I was impressed by the defined bearing of the man and his clear, correct English. Obviously, he was a person of considerable culture and training. His son said something to him in very strange-sounding words. The father replied, and I realized they were conversating in their native tongue. "Bohunk wants to know where you live," he interrupted. We are complimented in your interest, Bohunk," I said to the youngster. "We live in Wisconsin, far, far away. There are lots of woods and animals, just as there are here." The father translated my message for the youngster. "He speaks no English?" Jenny asked. "Just a few words," replied the father. "I am teaching him Hopi first. He must learn that he is an Indian." He hesitated a moment. "And will always be an Indian." "His name?" asked Jenny. "Kona," said the father. "It is Hopi for chipmunk. I call him Bohunk most of the time. He's nothing but a rascal, a menace." He put the child on the ground, and the youngster ran away, giving perfectly the calls of chipmunks, chickadees, and marmots in rapid succession. We sat down to resume our observation of the evening, and the Indian sat near us. Chipmunk gave Jenny a start by running right up to the edge of the canyon. She called to him to come back. "Don't worry," said the father. "He is like a mountain goat, never happier than when he is at the edge of a 1,000-foot cliff." "My name is Sam Campbell," I said to him, feeling that we should be acquainted. "This is Mrs. Campbell. Could we have your name?" "I am very glad to meet you," he said, bowing to Jenny and extending his hand to me. "My legal name is John Corn. My real name was too hard for people to say." In response to questions that followed, I told John Corn what was the purpose of our visit. He looked at me sharply. "What did you say your name is?" he asked. "Sam Campbell?" "Oh, of course," he said with fresh cordiality. "I have one of your books. How's Inky? I am telling Bohunk your story. Come here, Bohunk," he called to the boy. In his own language, he told the boy who we were. "Inky?" he kept saying in a thin voice. "Inky?" Now we were more important to him. He came up and shook hands with me and permitted Jenny to take him in her arms. There was a lengthy conversation between father and son and Hopi. "This is a great day for him," the father commented to me. "He calls you Inky's papa, and to meet Inky's papa is almost too much for him. You see, we have lots of animal pets. We never kill anything. He has never known what it is to abuse an animal or to be abused." There was no lack of interest and friendliness in our conversation now. Kona was somewhat overpowered by having Inky's papa so close, and he hung to his father, peeking around shyly at Jenny and me. I tried to lead John Corn to tell more about himself, but he avoided doing so. I felt there was a worthwhile story there. The Indian was most interested in the object of our mission. He was not too discouraging about finding mountain lions. "I know this land better than any of them," he said, and it did not seem to be boastfulness, but just a statement of fact. "Maybe I can help you. You will be living at the lodge?" "Yes, except as we make expeditions back into the forest." "Good. I can find you here." He arose to go, taking his sleepy little Kona on his arms. "One thing you should do while you are here," he said. "Here," said John Corn, just as he was leaving. "Yes?" "Go to the bottom of the canyon." The darkness hid my scowl.